Right now, I'm actually quite afraid. And the reason I am saying that is because the real-time SOM rule recession indicator has started to really pick up its pace. And thus far, it's never been wrong. And with all the news coming out quite recently here, it seems that our expectation of a recession coming soon but not yet might have to be changed to soon right about now. Donald Trump, for example, just said we are close to the 1929 crash, a depression, and a new world war. Obviously, the last part is not something I like to read about. However, there have been some interesting indications of it in some lights that you might not expect. One of those is, as you can see right here, Putin just signed a law legalizing crypto mining. And you know what happened exactly 2 weeks ago? Trump went out and stated that the US will become the center of crypto mining. So it's kind of funny how right now, perhaps a little bit of a battle has started around crypto, where the US says, hey, we want to be the center of crypto mining. And then also Russia comes in and says, you know what? We want to be the center of crypto mining. I should add one thing. Even though I'm scared of traditional markets and I'm a little bit afraid for the normal people, I do believe every single thing with regards to this recession, which again looks to be coming up. I think it hasn't really come this close in terms of an uptrend. Maybe perhaps once here in 1967 without a recession leading. Again, the darker area being a recession. And again, just looking back at it, right? The longest period without a recession has been what? 9 years or so, maybe here, from January 1991 to March of 2001. The last time we had a recession was like, I guess we had one actually back in 2020, but that's a little bit of an outlier. It was that crazy. Perhaps, that was basically like we saw back here in 1980. And anyway, guys, I'm not telling you 100% for certain that a recession is coming. What I do know, though, is that people are getting played left and right. One thing that just happened is today, obviously, as it's Friday, there's massive amounts of option expiries. But also today marked a pretty good day for Bitcoin's price, as we saw $62,000 after going to what? 53, something like that, is where it was at just now. Breaking. Someone who shorted Bitcoin just got liquidated for over $12.99 million. And this all comes, by the way, as the stock market this time around is doing pretty good. Bitcoin is finding some slight downside, but it is picking up the pace with Bitcoin as it currently stands, slowly but surely continuing on with its uptrend. Anyway, so like I just said, if a recession were to hit, I think one of the most important things to watch for signs of that, but also reflections of that, could be the US inflation numbers coming out this Wednesday, as most likely everything around this event will give us an idea of what the situation is looking like, in the sense of if the markets react heavily on this, since all the numbers have also been updated to a more, I guess, higher one for a chance of a recession by end of the year. And it's just been stalled as to when that recession was going to hit. I think it will get reflected as these numbers come out over on Wednesday, so make sure you watch carefully for those. Perhaps the Chinese inflation rate numbers that came out today were also important. I'm not really that big a participant on the Chinese market, so I can't really tell you or how big an effect PPI will have. All I know is with regards to the recession, inflation is a key factor to watch. You might have wondered actually why I showed you this, right? This someone who shorted Bitcoin got liquidated for 12.99 mil. Actually, it was slightly more connected to a story, which I've got for you right here. On this channel, I often show you the Bitcoin cycles, right? And I try to relate it now to the fact that the recession, theoretically speaking, is just part of a cycle with, again, the inflation going up and down, the interest rate going up and down, just like how Bitcoin has its cycles. All right, but before we move on, take a look at this. As you guys might have seen earlier on the channel, there's a pretty interesting project out there called BlockDAG, which has raised a whopping $65 million in their pre-sale. And simply put, it's a proof of work, meaning mineable, layer one that, of course, tries to reinvent the space. Unlike conventional blockchain tech, BlockDAG prioritizes security and champions an eco-conscious environment, paving the way for sustainable digital transformations. And so, like I said, one of the interesting parts is that it's a proof of work crypto project, so they've got a couple of different ways in which you can mine to get yourself some of the coins. There's a couple of different ones you can go for, and if you look at products, you'll also see they've got themselves the BlockDAG card. just like a couple other crypto projects are doing right now because it's really trendy. They want to make sure they get themselves a card for everybody out there. You can just store your crypto on and use to pay for things. And by the way, that whole mining tobacco that I just talked about, it should also be available on Android and iOS. So that's pretty cool. One other thing that was just announced, besides these bonuses, is at least a part of their team. So I believe they stated that parts of their team will be revealed piece by piece. And apparently these are some very, very quality names. And they also, I can't play it right here, but they also launched a pretty interesting and really high quality ad. And if you go down, there's a little button that says swipe me. And you can see a little bit about what the app would look like for your mining. And if you go down a bit further, you can see all their most recent updates. And I also decided to partner up with some UFC guys. Interesting. And anyway, like I said at the start, they're doing a pre-sale right now. So they're raising. It's already had some pretty staggering numbers. But I believe they also just added some new bonus tiers for everybody joining. I remember a while back they announced a $2 million giveaway as well. And here's a bit of what it looks like. It's all pretty obvious as to how to buy, etc., etc. If this is something you're interested in. But anyway, for all those that are interested, I'll leave a link down below, so check it out right there. Read a bit more about their keynote, about their new team, about the most recent updates, or if you want to go ahead and join with whatever's going on with them. So again, check it out with the link down below. Now, what many people don't realize is that for the most part, the people that get these crazy numbers are people that either do it with too much of a risk, so they try to make too much money on a very small move, or more logically, and more of the time, people who are trying to do the opposite of what's logical. So again, looking at Bitcoin now, what we expect, and let me quickly show you this by zooming out ever so slightly. And if you guys, I have the, I had the pen on, giving you guys a little zoom out. What we all believe is that right now, Bitcoin is in an uptrend, and even though it can go down slightly, we're still going to see a $100,000 plus Bitcoin within, let's say, a year or so. So the people who right at any one of these points thinks, you know what, this time around is going to be different. This time around, we're going to break through and go all the way down. For the most part, that's the people who also get into these positions and lose all their money. Most of the time, the trend is your friend. Then again, all that will change if a recession does hit. I will tell you honestly. Then again, it's not like my crypto price predictions change because of it. I mean, VanEck, one of the world's top investment firms, just released their 25-year Bitcoin outlook. And what they said was, in the worst case scenario, right, over a 25-year period, we're going to be at 130,000, which is basically doubling. A base case, so most likely, probably, logically, we're going to be at a couple million, like $3 million or so a coin. And in the best case, or one of the best cases, we're going to be at like $50 million or so a coin. I'd always like to relate back and say, if Bitcoin goes to these prices, relatively, altcoins will also go absolutely crazy. Don't think that just because many of these guys only talk about Bitcoin, that there's only potential in Bitcoin, because Bitcoin is the leader for all the other gains to come, but not the only one to do it. I mean, I'll tell you honestly that there will always be some crazy opportunities to get these crazy multipliers that are just way harder with something like a Bitcoin. There's a guy who bought a meme coin that turned $700 into $600K. Can you believe it? As a matter of fact, it happens way more often than you think. This type of stuff makes you want to quit your job and just become a full-time degenerate, huh? But then again, it requires a little bit of a mental handicap as well to hold from $700 and not sell until it's worth more than $500,000. I think most sane people, if they see their $700 turn into $10,000, they're out. But then to wait, see it go past $100,000, see it go past the value of a freaking house, and then double to 2 homes basically, depending on where you live, or depending on where you live, it's like freaking 10 homes, and then be like, you know what, still not gonna cash it out. That is maniac behavior. Now, not everywhere. I mean, one wallet he has, apparently he bought $1,000 and sold $5,000. But then for every good trader, I shouldn't say this is a bad trader, but for every good trader, there's also somebody on the opposite side who made the worst choice of their life. And this 13 million, it's not really indicative of anything. I just try to show it to you as an example of what you could get if you're trying to go against the trend. Right now, there's a lot of cases that make sense for shorting, right? There's a good appeal to think perhaps the stock market is going to come crumbling down because of what's going to happen with the inflation very, very shortly here, or because of all this fear of a recession. And as the stock market moves down, Bitcoin very often moves down as well. So shorting it at a pretty low point because you're expecting prices to go crazy towards the downside is not that mad. But in my own humble opinion, and what I always try to portray on this channel, it is not something you do in a crazy bull market if you want to sleep comfortably. Yes, it might make you good money, but why risk it? why not go for a long? Because essentially, the only out that I will add, or I should say I can attach value to, the opinion or the theory, is if you're shorting it because you think it's going to zero and will never go higher than it is today. If you do believe it will, there are, again, only two options. One is you're just a maniac doing whatever you want, all right? That's an option. But the more sane option is because you've got a short with a lot of leeway, meaning you, for example, got yourself a 2x leverage short, or you've got a cross position with a ton of underlying margin or balance to add as margin. That way, if you're shorting at $50,000 and it goes to $60,000, $70,000, since you've got enough margin, you just keep adding to the short, waiting for the price to come back down from any point, making money on it. A lot of institutions do it that way. This account that we've seen could have done it that way. For the most part, though, that's also how the long would work. That key idea there being you buy at any point. You add more as prices come down lower because you believe that at some point in the future, we will be higher in terms of price than we are today. And as long as that happens, you're not losing money. A bit on funding, but generally speaking, the gains you make from the price going up will cover that, especially because if you keep buying lower, your average price gets lower. And again, your initial idea was the price will go higher than it is today at some point, so the waiting will be worth it. The key part there being don't get liquidated, which unfortunately happened to this account. And again, the motto being don't short in a bull market. You can, but it's just so much more difficult than it needs to be. And I've already described on my channel here. If you just check out the link down below to 𝗫𝗫, it's the exchange I use, and you go through the steps that I often portray on the channel, it is honestly just not that hard to win. It's not that hard to succeed in the bull market. I'm not your financial advisor, but I do believe my theories here make sense. Anyway, I will again add, there's a very important meeting to watch out for. The inflation here is going to be very interesting, the numbers that come out. But more importantly, I would be wary of a recession in terms of the fact that maybe your alternative investments aren't as wise right now as they were before. Yes, there's a case to be made that since the cutting of rates is going to happen in September, the market's actually going to really flourish on that. But in the midst here, things are a lot more dicey than they've been throughout the last while. And they are getting more and more dicey, not less dicey. So again, even though we've got ourselves a really bullish outlook in September, and I would not even short or even really for that matter sell too much in the traditional asset markets, I am telling you, be more wary of rapid changes. A lot of my friends have stabled up a little bit more, cashed out more than they usually do to invest in these alternate things or to think more about the preservation of their wealth or their money that they now made. And again, where usually, me especially, right, I'm full on risk, 99% in crypto, go crazy, go hard or go home. And I still kind of stand by that. I have now also opted more into the idea of setting a little bit more on the side for a crazy dip or a crazy move that might happen, just because the market is in such a strange spot with such a bullish outlook, but a heavy recession on the shoulders. So yeah, just wanted to quickly make that clear. That's about it.